Hi there. Today I'm taking a look at a Vouvray, and this is quite interesting because it's a 2014 Vouvray Sec from Domaine du Margelleau. So 2014, 7 years old for a dry Chenin. I wasn't entirely sure how this was going to be. I thought that maybe we might have to make a recording of something else, but no, this is really impressive. The domain is a small family domain. It's run by Bruno and Jean-Paul Pieaux. Bruno took over in 1995, having worked for his father since 1990. But the estate was founded by his grandfather, I believe, in 1938, who had 10 hectares of vines. But he passed on his vines to his sons, and they worked separately. So it was only when Bruno took over and the two brothers retired that the whole domain was reunited, and in fact had been enlarged. They've now got about 35 hectares of vines. And the vineyard types they've got are quite typical for this part of the Loire. They're something called Tuffeau, which is a blend of clay, limestone, and sort of quite chalky, soft soils. But actually, where they are, there's a certain amount of the silex, the particular sort of flint that you find particularly in Pouilly Fume-like, mixed into the soil, and that gives some heat retaining quality, and makes it quite a poor soil. The winery produces its wines again quite a straightforward way. The wines are 100% Chenin. Chenin Blanc is quite a large grape, doesn't take readily to being machine harvested, so this was all hand picked. The bunches were gently pressed in pneumatic presses. Fermentation took place in temperature controlled stainless steel tanks with the ambient yeasts that were either in the winery or came in with the fruit. I don't see any particular influence of oak on the wine, so quite straightforward from that point of view. 2014 was a really pretty good vintage. It started well, early bud burst. There was quite a long wet period in the late spring, early summer, particularly wet August, but then a warm, dry September absolutely saved the vintage and came in with some lovely clean fruit, but actually that had some quite good acidity still. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? Considering it's a 7-year-old wine, it's not taken on an awful lot of colour. It's maybe got a slightly strawish hint rather than being sort of a vivid lemony yellow, but it's still just a medium yellow colour. I didn't actually get the alcohol. It's 12.5%, so not particularly high. So this is going to be relying on its, particularly on its acidity to keep it going. I'm not expecting there to be too much extract there. The aromas, frankly, are a little reduced. What do I mean by reduced? They don't smell nice. There's a slightly catty note. If it was Sauvignon Blanc, it would that would make more sense. There's a slightly sort of sulphurous, eggy note, but then there is a minerality, and there are some notes of bruised apple coming through, which are much more typical of what you'd expect to see from Chenin Blanc. But they're all quite restrained, and they don't bode particularly well. So let's have a taste and see what I think. I'm glad to say that the pungency of the nose doesn't follow through to the aroma, to the palate, because in fact what you're getting is some slightly waxy fruit, which again very typical of Chenin, wax, lanolin, those sort of notes, but there is a slightly honeyed touch on it as well, and that's giving quite a long warm richness to the end of the palate there. It's not particularly high alcohol, so that's not giving that. It's actually the developed fruit giving the sort of honeyed core of slight richness, slightly toffee apple, cooked apple, those sort of notes. There's a lovely freshness, and the underlying mineraliness and those developed apple notes are lasting really well on the finish. I'm dead impressed by this and the way it's tasting. You could very happily eat this with fish, with light salads, that sort of something that it would cut through quite nicely, because the acidity has this lovely freshness. Although it hides behind the fruit as that opens up, it's mouth-watering at the finish. And actually the finish, now that the fruit is starting to fade, is leaving a sort of a mineral, chalky, dry note on there. So yeah, really interested to see the way that Chenin Blanc has aged there. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you find this interesting. I would highly suggest trying a bit more Chenin. But whatever you do, I hope you'll join us again for another tasting soon. Bye now.